Here's what I think when it comes to Zebec regarding a post they made not too long ago, basically talking about how they were making use of their partner's ISO 20022 aspects. Now, even though nothing I say is financial advice, people may be thinking, why even care about this? Well, it's because personally for me, even though I can't speak on anyone's behalf, I find it pretty cool because they're actually making use of their partnerships. Some of their projects out there, they don't really do that, which I actually think that why even have a partnership if it's not really going to help? That's my point of view. However, even though I am aware that when it comes to ZBCN, it is currently around 36 times lower than 10 cents even as of right now. But even besides all that though, when I even mention this ISO 20022 aspect, people like to tell me sometimes, okay, if Zebec is so focused on this global trade and finance space, why even bother if there's already something like, let's say in the case of Stellar, which already has an aspect of ISO 20022, and then on the flip side, we're still seeing Zebec work towards that ISO 20022 compliance and still kind of have to do aspects of it through their partnerships. People may be thinking, if Zebec has to do all that, why even bother if there's something like Stellar? I'm totally aware of that argument, but here's my response to that. I feel like within a space, or let's say within a niche or within a sector, there's not only just going to be one option and then the rest people don't really care. However, I think there's going to be probably one or two top projects within that space. Totally aware of that. But it doesn't mean that there's going to be no room for the others to really kind of do its thing. It's like, for instance, when it comes to airplanes, I mean, sure, there's Gulfstream, but there's also a bunch of other airplane brands out there. That's the way to take a look at it. For instance, right? That's just an example. And also on top of that, people like to say, well, why does Zebec even bother trying? Well, it's because if they don't try, how will they know? You know what I mean? It's like, for instance, how would Kevin Hart know he would be a good comedian if he didn't try to actually become a comedian? You know what I mean? Sometimes a project has to actually try to do something in order for them to know if they can actually do it. In this case, when it comes to Zebec, being focused on global trade and finance, I feel like in and of itself, yeah, sure, there's two very popular options within this space, and Stellar is one of the two. And sometimes you like to say, why even bother? Well, it's because I feel like there actually isn't that much stiff competition. So then if Zebec enters, especially at a time like right now, and has this kind of presence, I'm not saying it directly entered right now, but I'm just saying, even if its presence currently, I don't think it's such a bad thing because it's a time where there isn't that much stiff competition. And also on top of that, sometimes people don't necessarily just want to prefer the top two projects. For instance, if I take a look at within this space as of right now, I cannot name more than 10 compelling options currently. I'm not talking about the whole space overall. I'm just talking about the space of, that global trade and finance niche. If I take a look at Stellar, of course, it's number 2. I take a look at XDC, it's number 3. Number 4, it's kind of like a toss-up between ZBCN or XCN, or should I say Onyx, so that's like 4 and 5, right? But then 6 and 7 is like a toss-up between SwiftCoin and as well as XPR. So when we think about that, I don't think that's like too much in the grand scheme of things. Again, that's arguably not even more than 10, and this space, historically, we've seen two very popular projects, but we really haven't seen kind of that number 3, number 4 in terms of that mainstream popularity. We have XDC right now, which arguably is number 3, but I think the reason why it is the way it is because it does have an aspect of ISO 20022. If something like, let's say, Zebec is able to achieve that, I think maybe it would kind of put it on par a little bit with some of XDC. Now, XDC, I think, is just way more popular, right? And I think even if this cycle sees a hypothetical altcoin season, I still do believe that XDC is going to be more popular than something like ZBCN. But at the same time, if it could achieve that ISO 20022 compliance, it would kind of make the gap not as far, in my perspective. And seeing Zebec even post stuff like, again, regarding ISO 20022, commenting on how the aspects of that when it comes to what their partners have, again, regarding that and how they're making use of it, I think that right there is kind of pushing more to the narrative of something like, again, ISO 20022. Now, granted, though, I think the cherry on top really is going to have to be if they can actually achieve that ISO 20022 compliance, which I'll have to wait and see when it comes to that, because I haven't seen that officially yet when it comes to Zebec. But I think that when it comes to just sometimes within this space, people I've seen, they kind of care about the narrative and the story, and who knows about this, right? I mean, only time will tell as to what could exactly happen to Zebec, I think, during an altcoin season, if we do ever see one. But I still like its narrative nonetheless because they're putting the effort. However, it doesn't necessarily mean that anything is going to happen, right? I mean, if they put a lot of effort, we see a lot of other projects out there put effort, but I still kind of like the vision that they have. That's just my point of view. However, sometimes you like to tell me, oh, is the team going to have this sort of sustainability? In a sense where, are they going to be able to sustain long term like the project? Because we've seen some other projects out there. The team is just too massive sometimes. There's just too many members in the team. And then during a market downturn, they can't really make it through that, right? But then what I find pretty fascinating about Zebec, and I actually mentioned this before, and this right here I think is actually what makes Zebec a little bit different to some of its competitors, is that if we take a look at Zebec's main presence throughout San Francisco, New York, and London, throughout those three major cities, Zebec only has over 25 members. It doesn't have like so many like what we've seen with other projects out there. It's relatively kind of a streamlined operation where it's not like where they have too much overhead in terms of the team. That's just my point of view. And I do like seeing that. Some of the projects out there are smaller than Zebec in terms of popularity and in terms of notoriety. We've seen them have a team that's way more than that, right? But Zebec relatively keeps it kind of not that, extensive. It keeps it relatively trim, keeps it relatively streamlined. So I do like seeing that when it comes to Zebec as well. It kind of puts the ethos of a project that is focused on global trade and finance because, again, they're even prioritizing efficiency when it comes to the team, let alone what they're trying to do within that space. That's just kind of my point of view. I'm still staying patient though, because that's all I can do actually. But in the meantime, they made a post about ISO 20022 regarding their partners. So I want to talk about it and kind of talk about my perspective when it comes to it and what I think about Zebec currently. And I want to say thank you for watching. I hope you all have a nice day. It's been Lee the Captain. I'll catch you all on the next one. I'm out. Peace. Bye.